Going to the last third of the season, here's the things we need to improve in. Red area, third down, penalties, first half points.
Two teams that last year were middle of the road, but really now in the top of the league on third down, and just giving the ball back to those two offenses that control the game and help them win in that third down situation.
There are a lot of different ways you could configure these 6 blitzers or bring them in different combinations.
Welcome to Week 12 of Coach. I'm joined by Coach Bill Belichick. I'm Matt Patricia, and we've got a stacked show for everyone here. Coach, we're going to talk about double mug. We hear about it all the time. We're going to see it on tape, maybe go through a couple of diagrams, and then we're going to go to the whiteboard and talk a little bit of blitz coverage, man coverage in the back end behind that 6-man pressure.
Yeah, everybody talks about how the offense attacks the defense. Well, this is the defense attacking the offense, crowding the line of scrimmage, or bringing people on blitzes where the offense has to block them if they're going to try to throw the ball, or get a crowded line of scrimmage if they want to try to run it.
It's going to be a great defensive install for sure. Then Michael Lombardi is going to join us, Coach, and we're going to talk about some trends right now in the NFL as we approach, the December football, NFL, the importance of, teams improving maybe points, third down, red area, turnovers. Some great topics of conversation coming up. Let's take a look at some double mug.
He starts in the front side A-gap showing mug blitz, and then he's just going to drop. And you can see Brissett, he just doesn't even see him.
It's a chess match, man. 7 were at the line of scrimmage. Andrew Van Ginkel drops out from his blitz. Even the best quarterbacks get tricked on this.
I love that, Coach, the chess match of double mug, or 6 guys up on the line of scrimmage. We hear the term double mug used all the time. Every announcer uses it. Certainly it's something that everyone says, but really let's define, what does double mug mean?
Well, double mug in our terminology is 2 defenders lining up over the center in the A-gap, so 1 guy on either side of the center. And these defenders can either blitz or cover from this alignment. So when you have 6 defenders against 5 offensive linemen, if you want to block all 6 of those guys, something has to give. Either a back has to block them, a tight end has to block them, or you have to run or move away from one of them who's free so he doesn't wreck the run or the pass, whatever it is you have called. So it forces the offense to declare how they want to handle one more player than their offensive line can handle.
Yeah, really, when we game plan 6 up, double mug fronts, sometimes we're moving in and out of different structures, but this is a structure that certainly puts a lot of pressure right through the middle of the offense. The center's got to deal with maybe 2 guys immediately standing over him. The quarterback, if it is a team that runs up under, he's got 2 defenders breathing down his neck about a yard away from him, or even in the gun where those guys might come free in a pass play pretty quick before maybe the back can get to them, and you're really disrupting the middle of the pocket on the quarterback.
Yeah, it's a simple math game. 1 more than the offensive line can handle. It's a good tool to put pressure on the offense and try to force their hand. Sometimes you can tell before the play what they're going to do, and that gives the defense a big advantage. Teams
use a lot of double mug. They can use it with zone coverage, man coverage. They can bring all 6 or more guys at the line of scrimmage. They can drop guys out. We've seen a little bit of an uptick, really, with the double mug look with pressure, with guys actually coming in the rush, not just dropping out into coverage. And it's kind of bothering some of the young quarterbacks right now.
Well, it's definitely a tough look, not just on the quarterbacks, but also on the offensive line, the running back. And if you throw crowd noise in there, it makes it a pretty tough situation. We've seen double mug used about 20% more than it has been the last 4 or 5 years on third down. So teams are copying it, teams are using it, and there are more variations of it. Let's take a look at some of these.
Yeah, so we'll look at the basic alignment of double mug inside the different options that we can use with both those linebackers walked up.
And again, the term mug means that the linebackers are walked up in the line of scrimmage, in the A-gaps, which is the gap between the center and the guard, in that area. And then what they do from there can vary quite a bit. But in this example here, in a pass play, the center's turning to block this linebacker and the block over here. That allows the linebacker on the left side to come into this gap. And then these guys have to figure out what they're going to do, how these 2 are going to block these 3, or if the quarterback's going to throw hot or the back's going to come over, or whatever they're going to do. So it just puts a lot of immediate pressure on the offense.
Yeah, so we can send 1 backer, or, we can also take a look at a picture where both linebackers can go through the middle of the protection.
Right, here would be two linebackers line up in those A gaps, and then on the snap of the ball, on a pass play here, we have one guy going first. You know, if the center turns this way, go here, pick the center, and wrap around. So again, the toughest thing for the quarterback is when he has pressure right in his face, right up in the middle of the pocket, regardless of, you know, how you create that, and whether it's one linebacker, two linebackers, or one linebacker wrapping around, you can get a lot of pressure up in there. If you want to bring all six, then you can bring the ends in there, and there's your six-man rush. If you want to drop the ends off and let them essentially replace these linebackers, so the ends now become the linebackers become the ends, if you will, in terms of numbers, then these ends are in coverage, and they can, you know, drop into lanes back here or cover the back man-to-man, whatever it is, and give you more flexibility on your defense.
Sometimes we like to put all six up in the line of scrimmage, then drop both those inside linebackers out, maybe into coverage.
Right, and again, it would be no different than if the linebackers line up off the line and drop. The difference is that it puts pressure on the offense before the snap. It sometimes forces the back to step up and show that he's in protection, or that the line is making some type of a call. One of the big advantages of putting these linebackers inside is it forces the back, because the back doesn't want to block a defensive end in most matchups. The back is involved in some kind of protection with these two guys. And with these linebackers walked up inside, that puts a lot of pressure on these tackles. The tackles now can't get any chip help from the back because the back's got an assignment inside. So it gives these ends a chance to really get off and get up the field without being disrupted, unless it's by a tight end on the line of scrimmage. But we don't have to worry about the back, that they can get up the field and rush the passer and put pressure on these tackles. The tackles know they're not getting any help. This is a tough spot for the tackles to be in. And this alignment right here, if they have a really good defensive end as an edge rusher, this is a nice alignment to help these ends out.
Yeah, and sometimes with that quarterback run game, you know, with the shotgun run game, when they move the back up, now we've eliminated that possibility. So it's another way for us just to get a tell as far as run pass is concerned.
Yeah, that's right. When these backs step up, then that really declares what they can and can't do.
And then another look that we like to see, 6 up is great, but sometimes we got to throw 7 at the line of scrimmage and really put the pressure on the quarterback.
Right, those would be the normal 6 players that you would see up there. And then if you add a safety into the line of scrimmage who may come, he may cover the back, he may drop out into coverage. Again, there's a lot of things that can happen out here, but now you truly have the offense outnumbered. You have 7, they have 6, and if the back picks up out here, then there's a free guy somewhere in the middle of the formation. This puts a lot of pressure on the offense. Who has this player? If they keep a tight end in, that's one way to get 7 blockers. But a lot of times this is one of the team's best receivers, and they don't want him blocking. So this is another look right here. This 7 on really it's 7 on 6. Even though the tight end is a 7th player, he's generally a receiver and not part of the protection.
You mentioned it at the start of the segment, Coach. We're going to attack the offense. This is a great way to attack the offense. We've got some clips here on film. We're going to show where the defense is really getting after the quarterback here.
Well, this first one is the Chargers, and they like to use this look a lot with the linebackers right up here again with their stance right in the A gap. Again, they're in a 2-point stance. They can very easily shoot these gaps right here, or on the snap of the ball, drop out and get to cover these receivers in the slot or tight ends and move into the coverage or cover the back here and force the line here to figure out what they're going to do. If the back is going to free release, and this is a 5-man protection, then what would happen is the line would block down and block this gap here. The lineman would block it, and they would turn one of the rushers here, this outside guy, free. And so that's one way for the offense to try to beat it, but it comes at a price. You have 5 blockers against 6 rushers.
Yeah, and the Chargers here, great look at it against Mahomes. Coach, they're going to, on the snap, they're going to drop one backer off into coverage and send the other on a little pick stunt inside to help the defensive tackle wrap around.
Here's the penetrator. There's the wrapper.
Yeah, good pressure in the pocket. And again, like you mentioned, just allowing the defensive ends to get that one-on-one rush on the edge. So the quarterback, he has to hold the ball right into the middle of the pocket. And the Chargers do a good job of getting after the quarterback there. Another look here, Coach. This is one of my favorite stunts where got a little bit of a rope-a-dope here by the linebacker to the weak side. We're going to now bring the defensive tackle on the end inside and wrap him around the edge.
Yeah, the Broncos really do a good job of this. They they like to force this back, in this case, to step up here into the A gap to block the blitz, and then they take these two outside rushers, the end of the tackle, and bring them down inside so that the back can't get past all this traffic to get back around and pick up the inside linebacker looping all the way around. So the penetration here by the outside, you can see, ties up the tackle and the back, and here comes the free rusher around the corner. It's a nice stunt, and it's a good way to beat the back stepping up into the line to try to take on that A-gap blitzer.
Yeah, we want to play a natural pick, and like we would talk about all the time here, pressure in the middle of the pocket, which is where we always want to be. Now you got the bigger guys, the defensive linemen in the middle with the speed of the linebacker wrapping around. Good rush here. Obviously effective, gets the quarterback in the pocket.
Yeah, the Broncos do a nice job with this package.
They sure do. And Chicago is another team that likes to run this up inside. But now, again, we've seen one linebacker go in each of these. Now both linebackers are going to go.
And if both linebackers go, then you can expect the back to pick up one of them. In this case, the back picks up the guy on his side. The blitzer on his side picks to the back hip of the center. And then we have the guy that is being blocked by the center wrapping around behind the linebacker and is free to the quarterback. So this is a tough combination right here for a center and a running back, two different positions on two different levels to handle this type of pick stunt on the line of scrimmage, and it comes free here.
Another example of why you see a lot of offenses try to move the running back up to get him as even as he can with the center, because again, these guys are off level. Now that pick player, he can get to the back hip of the center. That frees up the wrap guy as he comes around and really get a 2-on-1 in the back and pressure in the middle of the pocket.
Yeah, the only way to really block this is for the back to move up and then the center on the snap to drop back. So both of them are on the same level, so they can't really get picked. But once they're on two different levels like they are here, then we pick the guy on the line and wrap behind it. Hard to block.
Really good scheme, good pressure in the middle of the pocket against the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And then another look here, we're going to bring the two inside guys, but really this is a blitz situation. We're going to try to bring more than they can block. So we've got our 6. You can see the safety coming down to get the 7th guy into the box versus a protection look from the Giants.
Exactly. So the 7th player now is in the box, and he has the tight end in coverage. If the tight end blocks, then he can add into the rush. If the tight end releases, then obviously he would cover him, and we're back to the same double mug look. But when they bring him in, then the defense can add him in. It's just another guy for the offensive line to account for. Now they got to block 7 guys instead of 6. The more guys that are in there, kind of the more complicated it gets for the offense.
You mentioned the numbers game. What also happens with that a lot of times offensively is, guys miss their assignments, and we got guys coming free through the middle. So you can see here on the pick stunt inside, the back's trying to help, but there's the green dog by the safety, and we've got guys pushing right through the middle of the pocket. Yeah,
this is a good example of the pick stunt here against the back stepping up. This is better in terms of the back and the center being on the same level, but still really not good enough. They penetrate and get in between them. Here comes the wrapper into the quarterback's face, and it's tough. Here when the tight end blocks, the outside rusher can take him and the safety can add in. So the more they bring in a block, the more potential rushers you have, tougher it is on the quarterback. Yeah, and like you mentioned now, the tackle to the open side, he's really one-on-one, with a good edge rusher, and eventually if you push the middle of the pocket, that quarterback's going to drop back a little deeper, the edge rush gets there, and it's just a real effective pressure. One of our favorites here, Coach, this is Hey Diddle Diddle, 3 up the middle, one that we like to run that really puts a lot of stress through the middle of the protection. These two players up in here, they kind of actually work out a little bit wider here and then bring a secondary player up here with the 2 tackles, looping outside. So it really becomes basically a 5-man rush, but with 3 guys up the middle. The tackles have to really recognize these guys dropping out of here quickly if they drop, and then try to push all this back into the middle. It can be done, but it's tough. It's just another brick on the pile for the offense to deal with, this extra player up the middle.
And I think you can see as he's trying to time up and come through, the line's trying to squeeze. They cut, one of the linebackers loose through the middle. And we all know when those guys are coming in the face of the quarterback, his eyes now come off of the coverage. His eyes drop down in the rush. And, it's just another way for the defense to put a lot of stress on the quarterback.
In this case, you see the ends that are dropped out there. So it's really only a 5-man rush. But it's a different 5-man rush with an actual safety blitzer coming up the middle. again, a tough look for the offense. And even though they have 5, they kind of get 2 guys tied up in here, and there's a free runner. So tough for the offense to handle the 6 guys. Once you add in that 7th guy, whether he's up the middle or over here coming off the edge, either way, it just compounds the problem.
Once we pack the middle of the offensive formation, the edges open up a little bit. The extra guy that's going to green dog or rush as an extra player, it all opens up. There's a lot of stress in the middle of this pocket. Teams are using this a little bit more, this year than maybe they were last year. A little bit more with man coverage right now than the zone concepts. But something that we've also done for a little while here ourselves is use this concept in our defense, throughout the course of the years.
This goes back a little ways to the Chargers in 14. There are the 2 linebackers up there in the A-gap, ready to go. Here they come. Nope, they pull out. And so now it's a true coverage situation. The Lions really pack the middle here. That allows our 2 edge rushers, the one-on-ones on the tackles with a lot of space to work. And just changes the protection element for the offense.
Yeah, and the quarterback trying to figure out the coverage as he feels the pressure coming from the edge. Again, we were dropping into zone look right here, forced the quarterback to step up into the rush in the middle. But just another good way for us to kind of mix that double mug or that double A gap linebacker alignment in there, and just a variation with coverage dropping out. This was a game, that we used it quite a bit, frustrated the quarterback here a little bit, 2014 against the Chargers. I remember 2004 going down to play in the Super Bowl against Philadelphia. We practiced at home for a couple days. We got down to Florida and put a new defense in, or defense I hadn't seen before, but obviously you had run for years before that, Dolphin 9. So 2004, I know we like to talk a lot nowadays how, in the last decade or so, they're running double mug. But Coach, you were running double mug in 04. This was a great game plan against Philadelphia.
Well, again, it just puts more pressure on the line of scrimmage. That's Vrabel and Bruschi up in there. And then our 3rd linebacker against, this is 21 personnel. So 2 backs, 1 tight end, 2 receivers, with a linebacker now pointed over the tight end and 2 guys up in the A-gaps. Again, a lot of pressure on line of scrimmage. Forces a lot of quick decisions for the offense.
Yeah, you can really see it stresses the protection here. Everyone's trying to squeeze down with both those backers inside. And like you mentioned before, there's that 3rd linebacker kind of pointing on the tight end, and he winds up coming free. And we just got a lot of disruption in the middle of the pocket.
Walking up into the line of scrimmage creates a lot of one-on-one matchups. Here it creates a matchup on Seymour, but one-on-one on the end, one-on-one inside on the guard. Same thing on the front side here. It forces everybody to block single, and then if we drop out, it's hard for them to come back and help. Much harder than it is if the linebackers are lined up, 4 or 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. So good way to create single blocks on a line of scrimmage.
Yeah, you love to see everybody in the backfield on top of the quarterback in the passing situations. But, we use this against the run also. The outside zone play that Philly ran, it was effective in the game here too.
This is another look at it against the running plays now with the center blocking, in this case, Bruschi. So it really turns into like a 5-man line, if you will. And then Vrabel ends up playing behind Bruschi here to fit on the ball wherever the runner attacks the line of scrimmage.
Good way for us to get penetration. Obviously, we set the edge on the front side here with Willie, but it was really the backside where we really created a single block, and Seymour in this picture was able to kind of come free from the backside and get into the backfield against that zone run.
Yeah, when you have those guys coming up the middle like that in the A-gaps, or at least the line in the A-gaps, the most important thing is that you set the edge of the defense and restrict anything from getting outside. You want to box it in because you have a lot of guys inside there. So having a good edge player, like McGinnis does here, or coming off the backside, there really isn't much space there for the running back to run. There are a lot of bodies in the middle of formation.
Yeah, another TFL. That was a great play against the run here. But with that look, we also use some stunts or some picks, allow those guys to penetrate, and then had some free defenders to the ball carrier.
Yeah, this is Vrabel coming up the middle, even though we're in a double mug look. This is Vrabel really hitting it up the middle with the tackles wide, and again the ends setting the edge of the defense. But what happens here is as the center goes to block Vrabel slips him on the backside. Bruschi plays over the top and is free over here to the running back to make the play. So again, against zone blocking schemes, sometimes this can really pick off the lineman in the running game, or cause them to lose their footwork and their timing on the blocks. With a little bit of penetration and a scrape over the top, is a good way to get some free guys on the defense to the ball.
Had the edge set there with Roosevelt, so the ball couldn't go outside to allow that stunt really to work. That's Hank Fraley in there at center, the offensive line coach at Detroit. I know he had nightmares about the double mug. Talked to him about it, when he was coaching for me, but he, just emphasized how stressful that was for him in this game, because then sometimes there's crowd noise, there's communication, all of the things that you just, immediately put pressure on the middle of the offense. The double mug, we hear about it a lot. But it is effective both in the pass and the run. That was a great game plan, helped us win a Super Bowl.
The double mug is a good way to put pressure on the line of scrimmage with 6 or even 7 players right up there on the line and threatening those A-gaps. It can be tied in with blitz coverage, man-to-man blitz coverage, 5 defenders against 5 receivers is a way to really attack the line of scrimmage and attack the quarterback, particularly in the passing game. So we'll just take a look at that and combine that with our double mug. Put some pressure on these offensive guys.
Yeah, let's attack the offense. We'll get up on the whiteboard and we'll take a look at blitz coverage. Well, Coach, we're back up at the whiteboard here. We just got done with double mug, and we saw all the different configuration or rush plans with 6 guys up on the line of scrimmage. But when you bring 6, you can certainly play some zone. You can play some man coverage behind it. But we want to get into some blitz man coverage and talk through the intricacies of that.
Right. We touched a little bit on the 2 under 3D hot coverage. But really, when you bring 6 rushers, you have 5 defenders left, and they have 5 eligible receivers. And in the running game, you kind of have a guy for every gap. If this tight end were to be attached here, you could bring the strong safety up to cover that gap. As he adds the extra gap, you have enough guys to do that. And again, the 6 rushers could come in any configuration. So you could bring, for example, the nickel here, cover the safety here, and let this linebacker take the back and just switch responsibilities. So it's really, the concept is bringing 6 and covering with 5 in man-to-man coverage. So these 5 have these 5, and if there's any type of tight splits or anything like that where you have a back, for example, if the back was over here, then you could come and have a combo coverage between the 2 safeties would cover these 2 back and tight end, number 2 and number 3 receivers.
Yeah, so a lot of different tools that we can use to change up maybe the look, have one kind of blitz call, and give some different presentation for the offense. But the idea, again, same was with the double mug. Let's put as much pressure on the quarterback as we can. Let's try to get pressure on the offensive line through maybe some different blitz patterns. But really, from a coverage standpoint here, talking our man coverage technique in the back end, we've got 5 to cover the 5 eligibles if they all go out. Usually playing with some sort of off inside man leverage technique with our eyes really on the skill players, waiting for them to release off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, that's right. And again, there are a lot of different ways you could configure these 6 blitzers or bring them in different combinations. But that's really the idea of it, is to make sure you have all the gaps covered in the running game, and then the passing game, that you have 6 rushers against 6 blockers. And if you wanted to bring a 7th guy, if this back was out of the backfield, somebody would have to cover him. So again, for example, if you wanted to bring the nickel here and cover with the weak safety, if he were to release, then this blitzer would have to take him, and then you would have a 6-on-5 situation. So you would have a chance to overload the protection. But if they all released, or if they line up in an empty formation, then you would have to obviously move out and cover them.
Right, so some different tools that we can use just to communicate defensively. Green dog is a term that teams will use when they want to add the extra rusher in if someone's in protection. So to, the example that you mentioned, Coach, if we wind up with the nickel coming and the back, he winds up blocking here, then the nickel could green dog into the blitz and add another guy. Or again, if alignment-wise, we got the nickel on number 2, the weak safety on number 3, a switch call could, easily switch their responsibilities on who they have in coverage to try to get more guys closer to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, or depending on the formation, you get the guy closer to the line blitzing as opposed to further back. And again, you could always bring a safety and blitz him and let this guy cover the number 2 receiver, depending on what that matchup was. So the multiples here are many. The coverage itself is 5-on-5 coverage with any kind of a switch call, which would, as you said, would just replace one blitzer with a coverage player. But the green dog or the add-in would allow you to give the quarterback the illusion that you're bringing more than they can block. But if that player released, somebody would cover. And the idea is to get the guy who's blocking to block one of the blitzers so
Right.
that the other guy could add in and be one more than they could pick up.
Yeah, and hopefully you get a good matchup. You know, certainly some of the linebackers that we've had where those running backs have to step up into the gap and block a Dante Hightower or a Jamie Collins or a Teddy Bruschi, the mismatch for the running back, we're going to get some pressure. It's going to stress the quarterback out. He's probably going to move with those rushers coming at him.
Yeah, and of course the key thing on this is disguise. Right, there's a few situations where you might want to show the blitz and just get up there and go, but you also want to be able to show pressure and then come out of it or not show it and come one or the other. But if you get everybody up there like you're going to blitz and the quarterback checks it, you may want to drop into coverage after he's kept extra people in to protect it. So the one time if it was a key situation like a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 where you might want to get everybody up there
Right.
so that you're not going to give up a 2-yard completion.
Right.
In a situation where you can't afford to.
Yeah, and with that disguise, trying to really mess with the quarterback, we can either line up in a zone look or we could be matched up, in our man-to-man matches at that point. So given that too high shell or some sort of zone presentation to the quarterback where he's not really sure, is it man, is it zone, or in some situations where we are and just, we're locking guys up and that's your guy, you got to travel with them, we have to have the ability at that point to be able to play some zones out of that look to try to match up that disguise with the blitz when it's coming.
Yeah, otherwise the offense will check to blitz beaters against blitz and pattern beaters against whatever coverage it is that you're showing. But I think from the offensive side of it, what you see a lot of is the back lined up out of the backfield and motioning back in, or sometimes the tight end lining up wide and motioning in to try to see, whether it's man or zone, but also to see whether or not they have to deal with blitz pickup. If the box is overloaded when the back leaves, then they need him to come back in and pick up. If it's not, then they would be able to get all 5 receivers out easily into the pattern.
Right, and one of the benefits of bringing pressure is to keep those guys in or make the offense bring an extra guy in, and there's only so many out in the pattern at that point. It's a great chess match, blitz. It's a big defensive call that, comes up in some pretty big games. We're going to get to some film and maybe take a look at some of those. We've run this in the Super Bowl. We've run this on Thanksgiving Day. Blitz coverage, man-to-man coverage, great part of the defense, something that you're always trying to work on, right when training camp starts, and big part of the package.
Yeah, that's something you have to work on early, and again, I think the big thing is to learn the matchups, right? So sometimes the linebackers can't cover the backs, but then sometimes the backs can't block the linebackers, and so both sides are trying to create that matchup the best that they can, and that's a key part of these. These guys are all usually generally pretty good rushers. You start bringing secondary players. Some are good blitzers, some aren't. It's the extra guy that really causes more problems than necessarily the blitz technique that player has. So, here we go. Let's go look at some film.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it on film. Well, Coach, talk blitz coverage on the whiteboard, but we got a couple clips here that we're going to show as we talk about man-to-man blitz coverage.
Right, and we'll start here with the diagram of 6 rushers, and then we have 5 defenders covering the 5 eligible receivers. 5 for 5. One of the most popular things in the league, and it's always been a good blitz tool, is to bring 2 over the back. So here's the running back, and if these 2 players both blitz over the back, he can only take one of them, and one of them's free. So there's a couple ways to do this. One would be to put the safety up on the line of scrimmage and bring them both right away, or in this case, as this diagram shows, to bring one and then bring the other one behind them. Either way, 2 over the back is tough for the offense.
We're trying to really stress the quarterback, but from a coverage standpoint, playing that man-to-man coverage, maybe off and inside, when we know we are kind of bringing in a little bit of an extra defender or putting more pressure on the quarterback, sometimes we can get a little bit of zone vision on the quarterback. We can see the ball when he throws it up, and we can make a play.
Right. The coverage techniques for these players in the secondary are a little bit different in blitz coverage as opposed to in normal man-to-man coverage when there's either 1 or 2 safeties back helping them.
We'll take a look at a couple clips here. The first one, we're going to get some pressure here. All the guys at the line of scrimmage, so the quarterback's going to be stressed. Again, you can see, the blitz coverage in behind it.
Yeah, and here are the linebackers up in the B gap here, and then the safeties coming outside to the back. So whichever one the back takes, then theoretically the other guy should be free. And then, of course, we have 4 guys covering 4 guys. So this is, again, just exactly the way we saw it on the diagram. It's 2 over the back.
Yep, and definitely can see the angle of the DBs. They're kind of tilted inside a little bit. They're going to play with a little bit of vision on the quarterback here because they're anticipating the ball's got to come out.
Yep, they're seeing the quarterback and their receiver, kind of splitting the vision here. These guys got a lot of eyes out there, so wherever the quarterback throws, they can drive on the throw. Quarterback doesn't have time to look anybody off or be too cute back there. He needs to get the ball out of his hands before these blitzers get to him.
Good tight coverage here. The rush is coming. The quarterback, he really doesn't have a chance. The back stepped up inside. You got the free guy coming off the backside, and before he can even really set up, we're going to get to the quarterback and get the sack.
This is a play where offensively you have to figure out how you're going to do this. You can't block them all, so somehow the quarterback's got to get rid of the ball before the blitzer gets to him and make sure that he knows who the free guy is. In this case, it looks like there's a mix-up here, and quarterback doesn't see him. He gets blindsided.
Great play here by Minnesota. A really big play in the game. Knocks them out of potential, field goal range in these situations sometimes. Just really, drives them back across the field. So good scheme here by Minnesota. Bringing the extra guy, kind of, gets a tackle for a loss or a sack in this situation. Really knocks him back across the 50. Great defensive play, man coverage, blitz behind it. A lot of pressure on the quarterback.
And we can take a look at another similar play here from the end zone. How it would look from back here. This is in Super Bowl 53. And again, it's a 2 over the back concept. So these players here are all blocked. One player will blitz here over the back, McCourty, and then Harmon, who has the back. When the back picks up McCourty here, then Harmon will add in to the quarterback. So it's a 6-man blitz. There are 5 players in coverage. But once this player blocks, then there's another rusher and becomes 7 against 6. And that's where the free player comes from. So as the back steps up to take McCourty, then Harmon comes free on the hug. McCourty takes the back here, and Harmon comes free to pressure the quarterback. And quarterback has to get rid of the ball before the blitzer gets there. Sometimes it can end up in the defender's hands.
This is a pretty big play in the game. Blitz coverage, you got to be ready to run it when you need to have it, got to have it situations, execute at a high level. We've called blitz in some of the biggest games. I think it was, 4 Super Bowls I can count off the top of my head where this play has, worked 50-50 sometimes, but this was a great one in the game, great timing on the call, put pressure on the quarterback, turnover. These are really important plays. You got to execute them at a high level. The biggest stage right here. Here's blitz coverage.
Attacking the offense, got to be part of the defensive system.
Blitz coverage, coach, that was great. Whiteboard, a little bit of film. But we're going to roll into the huddle here. Michael Lombardi is going to join us, and we're going to talk about trends in Week 12. Well, welcome back to Coach. Michael Lombardi joins us here as we get into the huddle, and we're going to talk a little bit about trends. We're into November. Trends have kind of established themselves through the league, and Mike, we'll dive right into it.
Yeah, Coach, you've always talked about Thanksgiving Day or November being the time where you really have to improve. You got to make your mark. And what we're seeing in the trends in the league are the good teams continue to play well. The bad teams kind of keep going back to the pack. And one of the trends that I think is so obvious to everybody, but it really doesn't spell out until you look at it, is first half point differential, right? Mm-hmm. Who goes into halftime with the lead? Last year, the Dallas Cowboys, for example, had 124 positive first half point differential. This year, they're ranked, I think they're bottom third of the league. They're horrendous. They can't protect, they can't go in with the lead. So when we look at this year, the Detroit Lions, obviously one of the best teams. They score a lot of points, but they score them early. This whole notion about we're going to establish the run or establish the pass is a crock, right? It's establish the lead is what makes most teams successful.
Yeah, and then the rest of the game kind of takes care of itself at that point. Your fourth quarter is a lot of situational football, but you go in there at halftime with the lead, and there's such a correlation between leading at halftime, leading at the end of the third quarter, and leading at the end of the game. So you're more than halfway there when you're ahead at halftime. Doesn't guarantee anything, but it makes it a lot easier to win, a lot easier to call and coach the game, and that's showing up with the records. Yeah. It's a huge stat.
I look at this every week, and Matt, I got to tell you, I always predict the Super Bowl winner will come from this sheet because that's just the way they're built, the way they can play from in front, and it takes away some of the weaknesses you might have on defense.
Yeah, halftime swing is something you talk about every single week, and how do you maybe eliminate a drive for the opponent? How do you, gain an extra possession offensively? And if you can do that before the half, start the second half fast, get that, maybe 10-point, 14-point swing. Now you start playing the third quarter and the fourth quarter, you're counting possessions of the game. You're looking at how many more times are they going to get the ball, how many more opportunities are they really going to have to score as long as we do what we're supposed to do complementary football-wise. And that's where you can really just get a huge advantage in the game.
Yeah, and then, of course, it lends itself right in the red zone, which you've preached all the time. The 4-point plays, you get down to the red zone. Can we put the ball in the end zone? And what we're seeing is a dramatic shift from 2023 to 2024, where teams have really improved in that area.
Right. I think, Mike, when you talk about the 4-point plays, we're talking about a team that's in the red area. If they convert on third down, then they go in and score a touchdown. If they don't convert on third down, then they kick the field goal. And that's the differential, 3 points versus 7 points. That's the swing. So those 4-point plays in the red area, of course, really add up quickly, especially with the number of close games we have in the league now. But you look at the red area offenses, Baltimore has done a great job. They've been very, very productive in the red area. Of course, a lot of that has to do with their good running game with Henry. It has to do with their quarterback running game with Lamar and his ability to extend plays and make something out of nothing, which he's very good at. The other team that's been very good in the red area is Cincinnati, but unfortunately, Cincinnati's offensive production has been offset by the fact that they're at the very bottom of the league in red area defense. So even though they're scoring more points, they're giving them up, and that's, that they need to get that changed in order for the record to change.
Yeah, I think you've always said that the best way to score is to run it in the end zone. And I think this year, two teams are the perfect example of their ability to run the football from last year when they couldn't run and how they've improved their red zone offense. And that would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were 30th last year. They couldn't run the ball at all. They were struggling. This year with Bucky Irvin, they can run the football. They're more explosive. They're third in the National Football League in red zone scoring. Same thing with the Arizona Cardinals. Last year they were 23rd in red zone. This year with James Conner, they can run the football. Running the ball down in the red area doesn't look sexy, and you say, why do we call that? But you have to have some run game to really put the ball in the end zone or help you get as close as you need to get.
When you can run the football into the end zone, it really just demoralizes the defense. It's one of the first things we always talk about defensive red area football is, hey, keep them out of the end zone. Don't let them run it in. So, I love Detroit. I love the consistency of what Ben Johnson has been able to do, Hank Fraley up front with that offensive line, the run game that they've been able to have a lot of success with in the last 2 years. They've been top 5 in the red area both last year, and they carried it over in this year. Ben gets pretty creative down there. He's got offensive tackles eligible. He just throws a bag of tricks at you down there, and you're trying to, practice those reps through the course of the week. It becomes really hard, and you have success with those type of plays defensively. Man, you're just trying to keep them out of the red area, not to have to deal with all those plays for sure. I think Detroit's done a great job.
It's certainly the same thing with Kansas City. I mean, they have a big playbook down there in the red area.
Wow.
They got everybody playing quarterback and playing halfback and single wing and trick plays and all that. The variety down there makes it hard to prepare defensively. You have so much to get ready for, formations, personnel groups, and so forth. And when you get into a couple of other good red area teams like Washington and Buffalo, who also have the running quarterbacks, that's a big advantage. So between Washington, Buffalo, Kyler Murray, obviously Lamar, those teams are some of the best teams in the red area. They're good teams, but those quarterback runs give them another element on the sweeps or whatever it happens to be, scramble plays, extended plays. Buffalo and Washington have done a good job there. And again, the more points, the more wins.
I love what Andy does in the red area. He'll go into the meeting maybe Wednesday night, sit down with the quarterbacks, the quarterback coach, and say, okay, you guys come up with some plays, and we'll take a look at them, and maybe we'll get one of those in the game plan. I think that's where you get some of those crazy shifts, formations, personnel. You can get that buy-in if you can get the players coming up with plays that you're going to run in a game. That makes it exciting. I think those guys really enjoy that part of the week.
From a defensive perspective, Josh Allen's so dangerous down there, right? We saw him run it in on 4th and 2 against Kansas City last week. I mean, to me, that presents a whole other challenge because he's the six-back runner in that offense, and trying to defend him, and then even if they call a pass play, you still have to play run defense because he could take off and run at any time. He led the team in touchdowns last year rushing.
In the passing game, he becomes the 6th receiver, and in the running game, you have an extra blocker because instead of the quarterback handing the ball off, he carries it, and you have somebody else to block. So it gives you a big numbers advantage when the quarterback can do that and do those things in the red area. Josh is really good at. So are these other guys. Daniels, obviously Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray. Like, they're big threats down there too. Run or pass.
Right. Plus the correlation, Matt, between getting a defensive holding call when you're chasing Kyler Murray around back there, as opposed to not getting that call. You know, you end up, the defensive backs are covering for so long. It's like when we played in the backyard. You know, everybody got open on 5 Mississippi. Nobody got open on 3 Mississippi, right?
It's so hard when you're playing defense against these guys if you don't have someone accounted for the quarterback, because quarterback moves, now we become aggressive defensively. We're trying to get the receivers out of bounds. A lot of times when we do get our hands on, now we're not looking at the quarterback, and then here he comes. He's running the ball. All of a sudden, you know, you don't see him till it's too late. And like Josh Allen's a big guy. Like he's a big, strong runner. Lamar Jackson, trying to tackle those guys on the 1 or 2 yard line, I mean, it becomes really hard at that point as you're trying to come out of the end zone and make a play to stop them getting in. These guys are difficult.
And, you know, 2 teams that have kind of gone in the other direction, unfortunately, would be Cleveland, but even more noticeably, San Francisco. Yeah. Those are really good red area teams last year, both in the top third. San Francisco was, you know, probably second in the league in red area last year. And now both teams are dropped down significantly into kind of the bottom third of the league in the red area. So I think that's part of the reason for their lack of success, lack of scoring. You know, it all ties in together. You got to have points, and when you're not producing those points from one year to the next, then a lot of times the record follows that.
Right, and you mentioned Cincinnati being really deficient in red zone defense. They just can't keep anybody from going in the end zone. But Chicago has done a really good job. I know their record doesn't always translate it, but the Chicago Bears and the Chargers, who have vastly improved their team under Jim Harbaugh, they've done a great job in the red zone because they keep themselves in the game. When you force field goals, or at least if you force a 4th down attempt, we're seeing more of them than ever before, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because 3rd and 4th down now are together. You got to package that together the way people go for it.
And back to your point, Mike, now those 4th down plays are 7-point plays.
Right.
So it's touchdown or lose possession of the ball on a lot of those plays. So they just become even magnified.
Right, and then the game doesn't get away from you when you can get stops down there, whether it's on the 7-point play or on the 3-point play. You stay in the game, and I think the Chargers and the Bears have done a great job. Who else do you like, Matt?
Yeah, I like the improvement that we've seen in Detroit, who was a great team last year and obviously built off of what they did last year. But red area defensively, they've jumped up. You know, now they're at the top of the league. Aaron Glenn has done a great job of, I think, just simplifying his package, knowing what they do well, doing a good job with their coverage matches. They get good pressure on the quarterback. I think that's really helped them to where they are now. And then also on top of that, Vance Joseph, the job he's done at Denver, really from the beginning part of last year, not so great, but made that improvement. That's, change halfway through the season. He's built on that. Now they're at the top of the league, and that's why they're a dangerous team going forward. Their red area defense, he mixes some disguise in there. He's got good pressure in there, tight coverage. I just like the change and the mix that he, really shows the offense on the red area. It's done a good job.
Yeah, and take a guess at another one of the best red area defenses in the league. How about Pittsburgh?
Yeah, of course. Right.
Guess we say that every year.
Consistency.
They
Mike
stop the
Tomlin,
run. They're disciplined on the quarterback runs. They're disciplined on the pass rush. They don't get penalized a lot, other than Porter. But they're very good in the red area again, and they stay in every game. A lot of close games. Win those games with a field goal. Good kicker. They're doing pretty well, and their red area defense is a big part of it. The game never gets away from them.
Yeah, I think controlling the quarterback in the pocket is one of the best things Pittsburgh does. We saw that when they played against Lamar, not allowing him to escape, or Geno Smith when he escaped to win the game for Seattle. You got to be really disciplined in your rush lanes down there, or else these guys are going to take off and score.
And even quarterbacks that don't run a lot, guys like Brady and Goff and all that, you give them enough room, even they can score from the 3-yard line. So it's always, that disciplined pass rush is always important in the red area against every quarterback.
Everybody's a runner in the red area. Everybody wants to score and get the ball across the end zone. And, with Pittsburgh, again, Mike Tomlin, great game plan. He's seen some high-scoring offenses. He's, shut them down, held them to under 20 points, and they've turned the ball over in the red area, too, which has been big for them, to stop some of those drives when they get down in there close.
And they love playing close games. So if you're going to play close games, Coach, you're going to be good in the red area. And the other thing you're going to be really good at, which Pittsburgh is too, is not turning the ball over and getting turnovers. I mean, that's where another part of the keys to winning football game haven't changed, no matter what the offense looks like. If you can score points, protect the football, don't make mental mistakes, don't give up penalties, keep them out of the end zone, and Pittsburgh's done that, and their turnover differential is always very good.
It is, and going back to the first point you made, Michael, about first half scoring, ahead at the half, ahead in the third quarter, leads to more chances offensively and more turnover opportunities on defense. So the turnovers kind of go hand in hand with that first half scoring. But yeah, absolutely right. There's a lot of teams that have really done a good job on those turnovers this year. And some of the teams that haven't done so well like the Giants, who have really slipped from where they were last year. New England turned the ball over a lot. Cleveland, Carolina, the Jets. And surprisingly, we'll talk about Kansas City.
Yeah.
They're not a good turnover differential team. Where they really make up for it is how good they are on third down, fourth down. They're historically good on third down, over 50%. But the turnovers are an issue, and in the end, it's going to catch them. I know that's one thing they're fighting hard to improve on, but everybody else is turning the ball over. Unless you can do some other things really, really well, it's just too much to win games, and we're seeing that.
And Kansas City, in the playoffs last year actually did a good job. They wound up being +2 and kind of turned around what they were in the regular season. They're going to have to do that again as they approach that time of the year in order to win in the postseason. With Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin, we talked about them turning the ball over. I also think Arthur Smith has done a good job of, really preaching to the offense with two quarterbacks, playing the season with two different guys back there, getting the ball from center and not turning it over on that side of the ball. So, consistency with that program, culture, everything that Mike Tomlin builds, I think they've done an outstanding job of keeping that turnover differential. And to our mantras that we would always have, there's nothing more important than points. That was something we would say in the building all the time. And then, take care of the football. Ball security is job security, like we would always say. The one team I think that's really impressed me so far this year has been Buffalo.
Yep.
Josh Allen, keeping the interceptions down. And Sean McDermott turning the ball over on defense with some changing pieces there defensively that he's added this year.
And then you look on the flip side of it, the Giants really haven't had an interception all year. Dexter Lawrence tipped the ball up in the air, and that gave him an interception. But, to be able to play almost 2/3 of the football season and not get interceptions is just, it's hard to win that way.
The best way to win on third down is to stay out of third down, convert first downs and 2 downs. I call it Canadian football. When you play Canadian football, there's such a momentum that gets built. And Baltimore is one of the best teams in the league at doing that. They're able to convert first downs and 2 downs. Green Bay is really good. Surprisingly, Arizona is very good in this area. I mean, Drew Petzing has done a wonderful job with this offense, and with the addition of Marvin Harrison, the way James Conner's running the football, and Kyler Murray's raised his level of play. There's no question. This team, there's a reason they're played so well this year and won 6 games. But to me, I think that's one of the most unlooked stats in football is converting first downs and 2 downs.
Then you don't have to worry about third down protections, third down multiple coverages, and all that comes with third down defensively, because that's where those defensive coordinators really love to dial it up. And one of the teams that's had such a hard time on third down has been Dallas. Right. They were one of the best teams in the league last year on third down, and now again they're at the very close to the bottom of the league. So even if you don't skip third down entirely, if you get a good positive play on first or second down, an 8 or 9 yard gain, then you're looking at a 3rd and 1 instead of a 3rd and 10. So those early down plays are so important to staying out of trouble on third down. You just can't convert them all. 5 third downs to score a touchdown. It's so hard.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City's 52%. That means that 48 times they're not converting on third down, which is still a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so the ability to get that, I think to me, one of the stats you have to always look at, Matt, is how many third downs were you in? If a defense forces you into 15 or more third downs, you're probably not playing very good offensively.
Right, and the defense is forcing you to try to drive the ball. They're not giving up those big plays like we talked about, those explosives. And, look, there's just a lot of times trying to convert a 15, 13 play drive, that's hard. That's hard to do offensively. Defensively, you're in and out of some different packages there on third down. If you can force the offense into that many third downs, again, I think the advantage is, defensively, you're right where you want to be.
Yeah, I think there's a couple teams that are struggling on third down right now, most notably Arizona and Atlanta, who are still in decent position. If they could get that third down defense, if they could improve that, and that also goes to playing better on first and second down to create more long yardage situations, that would really help them. Because again, third downs aren't turnovers, but they're close.
Yeah.
You get the ball back. You just get it back with, less yardage, generally speaking. But third downs are kind of like turnovers, and the better you are on third down defensively, the more opportunities your offense has to handle the ball in better field position.
And for Arizona, it's a question of can they get enough pressure. They've been really good from playing from in front, controlling the pace of the game with their offense. They've done a nice job with that. And the second half of the season for them really is going to determine how far they go. Do they stay in first place in the West, or do they start to dwindle down?
complementary football on third down, offensively and defensively. We would say the marriage of rush and coverage on defense. You know, Detroit and the Chargers, two teams that last year, middle of the road, but really now in the top of the league on third down, and just giving the ball back to those two offenses that control the game and, help them win in that third down situation.
They wear down the defense. It's hard. Another area where improvement could really help a couple teams, penalties.
Yeah.
Baltimore and Houston, especially offensively, commit a lot of penalties. Baltimore leads the league in penalties. Can they overcome them? Yeah, sure. But eventually, it's going to be hard, and it'll cost them. And so to have as many penalties as those teams have had, if they can just, in the last third of the season, cut that in half. You don't have to get rid of all of them. Just cut it in half and stop being in 2nd and 15, 2nd and 20s, 3rd and 15s. That could really help those teams because they're good teams and they're in pretty good position. But what they're doing to themselves, especially on the pre-snap penalties, just makes it tough.
Yeah, the false starts, you would always talk about, the pre-snap penalties. Just get rid of the pre-snap. We can control those. Holding, sometimes in and out of the week, you got to talk.
Yeah, football's football.
You got to talk about who the official is and make sure you're being smart with your hands. Maybe wear the right color gloves so they can't see on there on the wrong color jersey. But just play a little bit smarter post-snap. But pre-snap penalties, you got two quarterbacks here, Lamar, you got CJ. Those are good quarterbacks, but they're playing in some really bad situations. Think how much better and more efficient the offenses would be if they could just stay on track.
The penalties and the negative plays just make it more difficult, and then add the weather factor coming in. Because we're seeing the kicking, no longer are we making these 50-yarders like it was an extra point. That's starting to come back to the mean, right?
Sure has.
And
yes.
so if you're Baltimore, you're not going to be able to overcome as the weather gets colder and the balls are harder to catch. All that starts to become a problem as we move forward. Weather is going to. I know we haven't had severe weather yet in the United States, but weather is going to be a factor as we move forward.
No question about it. All these little things are going to add up, and I think as teams, come into this kind of last third of the season, regardless of whether, they have a bye, don't have a bye, have a long week, whatever it is, go into the last third of the season. Here's the things we need to improve in: red area, third down, penalties, skipping third down, first half points, etc. Now's the time to start really putting the big push on to get those things right.
Yeah, we're at Thanksgiving. Next week we will celebrate Thanksgiving. So come back and join us next week here on Coach.